Hey there, guys. How's it going? It's Sunday night, and I'm hoping maybe a couple people would want to jump on to the live stream here and just kind of do a little bit of reasoning. We all want change. We want real talk. We want real change, but we don't always get that. We're living in a world where you need to always keep your mask on, get your makeup on, get your nails done, get your hair dyed. But I'm looking for to be the best possible version of me and to be able to strengthen the people around me. So I've got my hair. This is all my neck hair, and I'm doing dreadlocks again. So I haven't been combing it for quite a while, and that's just my personal choice. I wanted to sit down. It's Sunday night, and for a lot of people, I remember all too well being a senior family law paralegal for almost 18 years. Hey, come on, guys. Go on. Hey, Luna, go. Come on, go sit down. She's kind of growling at the other dog's food here, trying to play games. No, stop. So I remember, Sunday night means, oh my gosh, if you've got a job, you're selling your hours, a just over broke, as my dad used to call it, then you're wincing and thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, tomorrow's the day that I'm back on the plantation. Tomorrow's the day that I got to go do something I don't want to do with my time. So when it comes to real talk, I'm all about real talk. And I've been in groups involving real talk. So I invite you to join me. And you might not always like everything I say. You might not always like my behavior, but just keep it with manners and respect and we're all good. So I'm equally fierce as I am kind and loving, a mother, but I'm all about sustainability. So if we're going to talk about medicine, we're going to talk about shelter, we're going to talk about the future of our food, we're going to talk about the future of the resources that we all share, the resources that are the air that we breathe, the water that we're drinking, that we're bathing in, that we're brushing our teeth. These need to be sustainable, and we need to start looking at our safety. I do hair tissue mineral analysis as a part of what I do. We're all out there like ships afloat in the water. We have relationships and companionships and, all of these different things. And it's like we're constantly setting our sails, like a ship in the days of old that would have to put the mast and the sails up, right? So we're also constantly in word sound looking to how are we going to get our sales going? How are we going to charge one another? How are we going to conduct our life? And so, long ago, as a child in the 1960s in San Jose, California, I used to question. I remember being 4 and 5 years old and saying, why am I alive? What's my purpose in life? What am I supposed to do here? Why did I come here? And why am I in this body? And what's going on? And I usually, turn to the dogs, and we had a Manx cat. And I spent a lot of time really just contemplating and thinking. So sustainability and safety are really a big deal for me, okay? I wrote down a couple of notes here. I think it's really important that we build trust. I just kind of jotted down a few things here. Respect and manners build trust. So if you know that you usually can't trust someone, you tend to really have those manners start to erode. They're not what they once used to be. The dogs are totally acting up like toddlers under the table while I'm doing this, okay? So the other thing I noticed is that people are sicker than ever, We're so caught up in everything being evidence-based and everyone being super credentialed because of the trust issue, because of the sustainability issue, because of losing respect for what's real, what's natural, what's right? So we all know that if we live in a world where instead of having pavement and blacktop and super fast jets that can transport people all over the place and pollute the place, right? The big debacle with Meghan Markle and Harry right now, Prince Harry, no disrespect here, but are we going to consider really legit, are we going to consider sustainability and our safety? Because with the hair tissue testing that I'm doing, if we're going to go and just continue to drug it cut it out and kill it out of people, meaning prescribe medications, lots and lots and lots. The average person is having 3 or 4 surgeries in a lifetime. And we're going to just chemotherapy it, radiate it, destroy it, ablate it. You know, we've got all these different techniques. And I understand why they're there. They're like a stopgap. They're like serving and servicing the public. But instead of using the word sound public, instead of just thinking about the herd, as we also think about the cattle in the factory farms with nothing but animal abuse most of the time. Thinking about the programs and paradigms that were intentionally inserted, I call them insertions, in the elementary, middle, and high schools. 12 years of learning what is no longer your mother tongue. You're learning English predominantly. You're learning mathematics, but that's 12 years that through home and hearth or through community education, we would have learned how to take care of seedlings and planting and community gardens and preparing food and creating wellness and strength and sustainability and food forests, plentiful fungi. And, you know, look at Paul Stamets's work and look at his new movie. It's absolutely phenomenal. Have we allowed this, or have we been run roughshod? You know, have we allowed it and it's just sort of like we made the votes and we sort of caused all this to happen? I don't believe that's the case. I believe that we were run roughshod. And so I know that if you go back to reading authors like Merlin Stone and Riane Eisler and many, many others, it's constant, you know, war and conquering, colonialism, imperialism, you know, it's just saturated with domination, really. And so what I learned as a small child, you know, a young child rather, you know, in San Jose, California with 2 Chow Chow dogs, Red and Pee Wee, and, you know, living, you know, being the only child for the first 6 years, was that pretty much everything I needed to learn about human behavior, I learned from watching dogs. Okay. The dogs typically wouldn't do domination moves unless their resources were threatened. And so today, going into dog parks, one of the things I notice is that, you know, a dog will be more leash reactive when it doesn't feel well, or it feels like it's, you know, other animals, other dogs in the dog park are attached to someone on a leash when maybe the rest are not. And that person has got a lot of, you know, negativity floating around its energy field. Okay. So everyone's playing games here. The dogs are playing games in the background. We're really super hyper accountable about people being credentialed, you know. Well, what's your training for that? What's your certification? You know, what degree do you have? And to the point, I told you they're playing, they're like toddlers when they get on the screen. So the deal is pretty soon it's like there's no more common sense. There's no more self-taught. There's no more real healers because there's all credentialed people. Like, for example, I do what I believe I really kind of have to call coaching or consulting. But this is the sum, and I continue to learn on a daily basis and keep myself, fresh with what's the latest trends and what's going on, and kind of dip into what other people are saying about certain things, read Mayo Clinic articles and read PubMed abstracts and, read all kinds of research. And I get research papers sent to me on my business email. But now I can focus without dogs playing in the background so loudly. But so then there's really not a placeholder for people that are self-taught, because 80 to 90 or more % of people are going to say, well, I don't really trust. I'm not really willing to pay out of my pocket because the system has everything between insurance, pharmacy, and medical industry. So it's all, a trinity. They're all, bedfellows, if you will. They're all in it together. They all benefit the next one. So I worked in law. I worked in law firms, very sophisticated law firms, to know how, and what it means to have good command of language, and what it means to kind of know how the game is played. The game that is very much similar to Monopoly. Go around the lifespan, pay attention to the ticking clock, which is why over 30 years ago, I removed wearing a watch. Okay. I don't really want to be immersed in the game any more than I have to. So people, you heal yourself. Thank you for joining me. People, you heal yourself by removing that which causes you the pain, the grief, the toxic negative thinking in the first place, to the extent that you're able. I just went through over 2 years of a close family member with heroin addiction after opioid addiction from a doctor following a surgery. And it really drove my adrenals into a very deep state of fatigue. I was clenching my teeth. I had a lot of real stress reactions. I cut off my really long dreadlocks and I'm redoing them now. I had, some bags under my eyes. I gained some weight. I was extremely tired, and I'm regenerating myself. And whether it was infertility or asthma or sinusitis or ovarian cancer, which I was diagnosed with in 2008, the one and only time I ended up going via ambulance to the hospital, I reversed that because I'm not typically allowed to say the word cure, and yet cure means to remove the symptoms. So if the symptom was a CA-125 blood test, which is an inflammation marker, if you do the research, I got paid to research for judges and attorneys and the DA. So I did the research. It was very basic. Could have done it on a smartphone sitting in his office, but I came home and I did it. And it's inflammation based. So really simple. January 1st, 2009, I put myself on a 100% raw food diet. I took some key supplements that I know about. I made sure I did walking every single day, got sunshine on the body, and, through a series of steps, I laid out a plan for myself, just like I do for my clients. My clients, just like anyone else in the beginning for me too, ovarian cancer was something that now that I'd had the skill level after the sinusitis, the asthma, and the infertility, looking at my hair because I'm not combing it, so I'm just not trying to be a disheveled mess, but going back into my dreadlocks. So that's what's going on there. So, we regenerate ourselves. We can regenerate nature, mama, the planet, just as easily, okay? But it's going to take a concerted effort. And that means that instead of relying singularly upon government, one leader or a leader in every town or village, as Ayurveda used to say, one president to solve it all. I'm not trying to, get snarky with the president or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that we actually need a council of elders. I've thought about this, throughout a great many years. And we need to have people like myself and like a nice, rich, diverse group of elders, let's say over 55 years of age, that are not taking medications, that are not, within the throes of alcoholism. Excuse me 1 minute. So a group, a council, a literal council that is able to agree to disagree, that is able to, not tackle. We need to be thinking about our word sound. We're able to look at what the pressing issues are and work through those issues so that every geographical area where there's a populace of people and animals can begin to regenerate themselves similarly to the plan that I made to regenerate me, or the gentleman with stage 3 kidney disease, or the woman with lupus, or the woman with myasthenia gravis, or Pastor Brian with the, let me get Pablo here, with the psoriasis. Pablo's gonna just keep whining at my feet. So, with each one of these instances and people, the people that, we put together a plan and they decided to do coaching, we achieve the results by thinking it through, by putting together, what should we do first? So in order, it's like a math problem. It's an order of operations, okay? And that order of operations is vital to solving the issue, to finding the solution. So the first thing is I have a 4-part program, and the first one is called gathering. I'm looking at a notification that popped up. Gathering means we need to hear the problem. We need to hear the symptoms of the problem. We need to understand or understand what it is. And while you're listening to the symptoms, I need to, as I have like a composition book here right now, and we're maybe on a session, but thinking of council of elders, in other words, for a geographical area and councils of elders in many areas, and truly be self-governing, meaning just like the governor on a vehicle, right? We decide what is in the best interest of the people. When I worked in family law in Santa Clara County and Santa Cruz County in California, in the Bay Area, before I was priced out like everyone else, my parents left in 1980 and moved to Northeast Minnesota. And I left in 2002, and I moved to Minnesota after never living here more than 2-3 months, and turning 18 and leaving and going back to California. I mean, California's got, really nice weather, and it's got great things to do, and I love the ocean. But anyway, so we have this plan. We put this plan together, and we're able to be clear-headed, crystal clear of the mind, because we're not under the influence of prescribed or street drugs. That alone is going to be a task to find elders over 55 that are not medicated, okay? That are not needing to constantly, vape or use alcohol or something. And you can't blame people. I don't blame you if that's you, because we're all thinking about what's going on with resources and our safety. The majority of us have experienced trauma. I was listening to a man on Facebook today who was talking about, basically almost 80% of Black women have experienced molestation and sexual, abuse. And a lot of people, males and females, have trauma and hurt and things that should have never happened, but for the fact that mother is too often removed, separated, weakened, and disenfranchised. Okay, so we have to take a look at what's really going on. So let me kind of go through my list here and put my glasses on, because I have a couple more things I want to talk about. So what we have is an imbalance, with the people, the animals, the insects, the food, the soil, okay? People are looking for resources, and in their effort to look for resources, they're willing to Photoshop, fake things, self-sabotage, procrastinate. Credentials are kind of like the absolute it of everything. We go to the doctor, though, and we might say, geez, we've been sneezing quite a bit. And the doctor will say, oh, allergies or immunity or something like that. But where in the hell is the common sense that if you're eating a lot of sugar the day before, chances are you're going to be sneezing the next morning? It happens every single time for me. I'll give you a great example. I'll go get a Starbucks soy or almond or coconut milk pumpkin latte on a rare occasion, like every fall. I'm going to get at least one of them because I really like them. And that's kind of like my junkie treat. And so I was out in the cold quite a bit yesterday, and I went and I got one. Well, when I got up this AM, this morning, however you call it in word sound, I let out a couple of sneezes, and I was like, well, that's right, because the pumpkin latte flavorings, I'm going like this because they're like the syrupy pumps, right? So not only that, but it can cause bladder leakage. It can cause sneezing. It's going to take your immune system down, especially if you're a super high plant-based clean eater. So what do the credentials mean? So with no disrespect, if you're a Western allopathic doctor, and I've had this conversation a great many times, and you have an AMA, American Medical Association certification, a physician, a doctor certification, and you went to college for 5 or 6 or so years, I don't know how long, and then you go do your residency for 3 years, And that's great because you get a lot of, on the job training, and you're working with real people, and it really acquaints you with what you're really going to be doing. But what about someone like myself who's got 35 years, who's really made a plan for people in what doctors are never going to do? They're never going to sit down and hold your hand and say, let's change your diet up a little bit, because I can see where if we start taking the weed out of your diet, we're going to take a lot of the congestion down. It's going to create a much more positive experience for you, right? And that's just the tip of where we're going to go, right? See, he's quiet now. He just wanted to sit here. Little Pablo. Schools. And we've also got precocious puberty going on. Why do we have that? Well, for how long have we been feeding our people factory farmed animals? Whether you're a bleeding heart and you just absolutely feel for the animals like I do, and maybe you don't. Maybe it's just like, no, I've just always heard that people eat meat and that's where I get my protein and that's the way it's going to be, right? But the truth of the matter is, I genuinely do not believe that you get protein from eating a dead, bloody animal body. And, to say it that way is kind of shocking, repulsing, alarming. But that legitimately 35 years later is how I feel when I see someone kind of gnawing on a rib bone or something like that. I mean, the dogs, they love to have their meat, and they also have plant-based foods. But my goodness, it's not something that we need. You make proteins from sunlight or solar radiation and eating fruits and vegetables. You might want to eat a few grains. You can be a raw food person. You can be a person who prepares food with the least amount of cooking, but cooking a lot of your food robs it of all of its life-giving force, okay? We know this for a fact by looking at Kirlian photography, right? It was in David Wolfe's book, Sun Food's book. It's been around a lot longer than that. I mean, I've seen it for quite a while, but Kirlian photography will show you the life force field of energy around raw, uncooked, real food that is not heavily sprayed down with, horrible toxins and heavy metals. A lot of the pesticides actually have mercury in them. So school is the number one industry for me where children are going on a daily basis, 5 days out of 7. They leave the home. The parent usually leaves the home and is out there selling their hours. And the child is backpacked and put on a bus, sometimes at age 4, and put into these. Now, it doesn't seem weird if that's what you're used to, if that's all you've ever known is, well, yeah, it's early 4s, or, they're getting an early start because they need to be competitive in the world. Competitive for what? We don't need to be competitive of each other. We need to be cooperative with each other, because together we rise. And this is something that's been a really big deal for me for a long time. Together we rise, hand in hand, in strength. So if I strengthen my sisters and brothers, if I help strengthen the world family, it benefits me. It benefits my child. It benefits the dogs. It benefits the nature. It benefits the world. Okay? So schools. When I was in school in the 60s and 70s in San Jose, California, at Henry Hammer Elementary, at John Muir, and at Pioneer and Branham High Schools, in elementary school, when I started to write with my left hand, I was forbidden from doing so. My mother came in and said, nope, she can write with her left hand, just kind of ease up on that. And I was allowed to write with my left hand. But, a couple of years previous to that, people were getting, slapped with, a ruler or something like that. We weren't allowed to wear pants as females. There's a lot going on with, giving us mimeographs back in that day of the 4 food groups. And it was always, milk, meat, and cheese. And those are all the goopy, congesting foods. I was looking at a woman's website tonight who talks about healing the thyroid. And I thought to myself, isn't that odd that she's recommending that people throw an egg in their smoothie or raw animal liver in their smoothie? That is the last thing. It is so repulsive to me. But this is the problem when young people are teaching healing, because they haven't worked through and experienced enough yet. And they show you a before and an after picture. The before picture, you see the real ruddy skin. There's no makeup on. Like I have nothing on right now besides a little tiny bit of eyebrow pencil. I haven't even combed my hair for months, because I'm doing the dreadlocks again. That might be ooh gross. You might be, hey, that's kind of cool. Whatever. It's my thing. It doesn't have to be yours. You get your hair and I get mine. Okay. And I like being a natural goddess. I want to be a powerful natural goddess. I want to heal my adrenals and heal my thyroid again, like I had them before. So in schools is where, I'm 58, you might be 20 years old. So it might be your grandparents that were in school that absorbed this programming or propaganda that said you're supposed to eat from the 4 food groups. And now legit, they believe that something's going to happen to them, that they're compromising their safety, their health, their well-being by not eating a dead animal body that's been spiced up, disguised, masqueraded as some yummy food on your plate. And it's yummy to a lot of people because just like it was to me for the first 18, 20 years. I think it was 1984 and 85, I went to Raw Foods for Reversing Cancer because a young man at college just kept insisting I go. And I was like, man, I don't want to go learn how to eat a bag of mini carrots. That sounds awful. I don't want to live on a raw food diet like that. And he said, no, just come to the first class. And if you don't like it, just quit. I'm like, well, okay. So, if the first class is free, I'll go check it out. I checked it out and I was like, oh my God, this changed my whole world. So thank you, Pamela Masters. So school is an industry, and it is a programming, much like a penal institution, much like jobs are programming us to be on task all the time. People feel guilty. If I had $1 for every client and person that I knew that said, God, I'm going to be retiring next year, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm going to be so bored. Or they get on bus trips and they go to casinos and they smoke it up in casinos and eat casino food. And okay, so that's something you love to do, but for God's sakes, there's so much more to life. Okay. Like go out and go hiking and see sights and, quit smoking so you can live a longer, healthy life. And, you're going to have to put forth, some willpower, volunteer at animal shelters and, go out into nature and get some walks. So, but I've had the most difficult time, trying to provide guidance for people to say, if you just change a few things out of your diet, change a couple of your habits, like the cigarette smoking, you're going to feel remarkably better. Okay. So we have issues, like we call them cold and flu. We teach people that they're caught. They're not caught. You can prove all you want back and forth, upside down, around, and whatever, through a microscope that there's a virus out there and it's going around. I don't believe it. Okay. I've never believed it ever since I went to herbal school, and Michael Tierra, who I greatly respect, I still have his book here, The Way of Herbs, I think it's called, said a cold is a cleansing opportunity. Your own body is discharging mucus and phlegm and bacteria, sugar, right? The sneezing, like I just said. And so, we have to, we want to, we have to, we need to come to a better understanding about what's really happening. Okay. So if you really still believe in vitamin D, you'll turn it over and it will say cholecalciferol on the back in terms of ingredients. You cannot take a hormone out of a bottle. I get it that a lot of people take BHRT, which is bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, which means an animal, usually a cow or a pig, that's being held hostage on these hideous, animally abusive factory farms, has got a young animal dissected and thyroid pulled out and desiccated, which means it's been dried. And now you're going to take Armour, which is Armour thyroid, which is out of a pig, it's swine, or you're going to take bovine, right? But why don't, instead of our trying to swallow a pill and look for the quick fix, if we still have our thyroid, and I get it, some people don't. It's been, ablated, radioactively destroyed, or thyroidectomy, it's been cut out. And now they are told, I don't know if it's a fact, but they've been told that they'll have to take thyroid hormone, and they're typically put on levothyroxine for the rest of their life. Okay, so I paid for a variety of credentials, and yet when I went over to our local hospital at Cloquet Memorial and eventually even, had a conversation with the CEO on the phone and said, I want to teach plant-based nutrition. Nope, we've already got a nutritionist here. And you're not going to be allowed to tell people that they can reverse the symptoms of type 2 diabetes. I said, whoa, that really tells me a lot about what's going on here. Okay. We live in a world where dogs that would have normally been out walking and having fun and having their own life are being pulled around by the neck or sitting in a house all day long. We lock up everything. We alarm everything. We alarm our cars. We alarm our homes. We're afraid of what's going on with our neighbors. Everyone's kind of crazy to us. It's about time that we look at strengthening and making a plan that has an order of operations, that thinks about a council of elders, that thinks about questioning the food that's being served to our generations below ourselves. This is something that I talked about with the schools here when my son was in school. I said, what about filtered water? And I got, oh God, there goes the dreadlock hippie. But there's a paper mill not even a mile away. That thing's been spewing out mercury for over 100 years, particulate matter and all kinds of sulfates. It's a paper company. It's a paper mill. Come on, man, get real. Okay, we don't need to wait for another Flint, Michigan. I mean, it's already happening right here with manganese, sulfur, and mercury. So dogs are sitting in the house, they're waiting, they're getting pulled around by the neck, they're getting beeped and pulsed and shocked with training collars. They're getting injected to the hilt. We take healthy pups to the vet, and the vet gets them all shotted up. And the people take their dogs home, and they feel so good about the fact that they got all the vet work done. And good thing I had it, because it was about $300. And I said, well, you just got ripped off. What? I'm like, yeah, go take the puppy to the dog park and let them build immunities, right? Well, just like with humans now, we're having young babies and young children that have health issues for the simple fact that we're not really building immunity, we're destroying it. Okay, that's why we have a new classification of at least 11 types of what we call autoimmune, right? Graves and Hashimoto's and lupus, and I could keep going, okay? So more and more alarms, more locking things, more personal safety. We hear about human trafficking. We hear about organ harvesting. We hear about all these horrible pedo criminals. We hear about people pushing for pedophilia, pedophilia. We hear about the Epsteins of the world, and we see royalty flashing around extremely expensive clothing. We see presidential elections, which will be coming up again, where millions of dollars are being spent, but millions of dollars are also energy. And that energy could have gone just like it did here in the city that I live in. $750,000 was spent on a park and a playground in between two extremely toxic factories, when $750,000 could have gone for a climate-controlled seed bank and climate-controlled grow rooms. And we could have been one of the first counties in Minnesota to successfully feed our own people and to involve school children, elementary, all three of the school levels, and the community, those who were on food stamps, those who needed extra help, could have been there. Grandmothers could have been there. I don't care if you're in a walker or a wheelchair or whatever, you could pull up and you could help with the younger children doing the seeds and the planting. Not only does that build what I started with, trust, connection, safety, sustainability. So now we're feeding our people. We're getting back in touch with the soil. We're learning about minerals. We're learning to be clean eaters. That produces offshoots to learn about how to prepare food instead of cooking the crap out of it, right? It's time to get rid of tater tot hot dish, right? Chicken dishes. Have we not learned that the majority of chicken is rife with H. pylori bacterium? It is, okay? So chicken shouldn't be on the menu, right? It's an animal that's been so domesticated, I don't even know really what it is anymore. So let's undo the burden that's being placed on the earth, the non-sustainable burden of feeding animals grains and chemicals and antibiotics and copper and zinc and growth hormone to accelerate their growth cycle that would take it out of anything close to natural and normal, that I believe is a major factor in mutation of cells, including cancer cells. And let's start to think sustainably. As we think sustainably, we build trust. We build trust working hand in hand on the grow rooms, and we can start to make medicine. We can start to help people that are at this moment houseless. It's really a wrong thing to call people homeless when they just don't have sticks and bricks, because we've always got our home in our heart. We've always got our love, but they're actually technically houseless, okay? So if you look around yourself, you're going to say, people around me are flat, kind of flat affected. Just, I noticed this the other night at the Amsoil Arena. Tired, okay? I think the majority of people are feeling like I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling really adrenal fatigued after 2 years of addiction, with a close family member being the support person, the caregiver. There's a primary user and a secondary user in the addiction industry, because it's another industry, just like the school is an industry. It's an institution. It's how we program our people. It's how we keep them busy while the parents go off and sell their hours so they can buy more stuff. They can pay more taxes, more property tax, more insurances. It keeps, and the cost of living is this artificially contrived means of oppression and enslavement that just keeps on escalating. And so in 1980, in 2002, when I moved here, I kept saying the rent prices are not going to be something most people can do. And what's happening? Many, many people are turning to van dwelling, and it looks like a really awesome idea. I might do it myself. Sprinters and schoolies and ambulances that are converted, and all sorts of conversion vehicles that people are minimizing. So what I did was in 1994 when I went to Jamaica, and before that in 92 and 93 when I went to Mexico, is I was really taking a close look at the gluttony, especially in American homes, right? And during that time period, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. And I was saying, okay, look how simply the people were living. And I started to reduce my use, wants, and needs down. I don't have a bed. I don't have a dresser. I cut my clothing way back. I rewear items that are not really dirty, right? I minimize how much water I use, right? I'm very, very careful. I recycle everything for at least 35 years. And I mean every envelope that comes, junk mail that comes, whatever, any kind of plastic, anything goes into the recycle can, and the recycle can is more full than anything. I don't care about gambling. I don't care about trap culture music. I don't care about computer games and game boxes. I don't care about having the most money. I don't care about being the prettiest or the princess or, the most entitled or keeping up with the Joneses. I don't want hair dye on my hair. I don't want those chemicals going in to my brain blood that protects my brain, okay? Aside from, having thyroid difficulties because of adrenal difficulties and being exposed to mercury with amalgams in my mouth, excuse me, my throat's getting dry. Hang on a second. I don't want nail polish, I don't want those things. Let me take my reading glasses off. So we are treating and vaccinating people We vaccinate dogs for Bordetella, which is the equivalent of the human cold, right? The human cold is a cleansing opportunity. We vaccinate humans for the flu, which is the most absolute absurd thing I've ever heard of in my life. There's never been a proven incidence of flu vaccine that's been beneficial, helpful, or proven to be helpful, because they can't possibly anticipate the next year's flu strain, if in fact it is a pathology, which I doubt that it is. Okay. You don't eat protein, and you're not going to get it from a dead body that you spice up. You're going to make protein by synthesizing solar radiation, having an integumentary, a skin system that's able to assimilate and turn that into a hormone. Vitamin D is not a vitamin, it's a hormone. Protein, all of these things similarly are a facet of using plant-based nutrition with solar radiation and causing the body to reduce its impact and amount of heavy and toxic metals in the body. So it's for that reason that doing the HTMA, the hair tissue mineral analysis, in a 35-year lab at Trace Elements, and having the interpretation by someone who understands it and understand what coaching, detoxification, herbalist, and mind body really does for you is absolutely powerful. Okay, so instead of locking everything up, instead of being so afraid of one another, instead of having to now sell body parts and sell people for sex, because what? We've been feeding people animals that have been subjected to such hideous amounts of hormones through, punching a gloved fist in and raping the bovine, the cows, so we can keep them, as if they're pregnant. Their udders are so heavy and they're in such pain. And then they're just chucked away and turned into dog food or beef or, hey, are you guys going to have the pot roast tonight? I'm like, oh, God, yuck. Okay. We use these names like, let's have the bacon or the pot roast, or are you getting a leg or a thigh? And I'm like, do you not hear yourself? Seriously? Ooh, yuck, right? But I remember being raised up in the standard American diet for the first 18, 20 something years of my life, and trying to drink a lot of cow milk because I wanted the calcium. Little did I know that I was going to throw myself into osteoporosis because my body can't utilize that. I'm not a cow. Okay. So then the argument is, how do you use a pig thyroid? Well, I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to guess that you may not be able to use it all that well. Okay. So instead of swallowing a pill, whether it's endometriosis and you're doing BHRT, it's hormonal difficulties, your hormones are your messengers. They're made from absorbing solar radiation, like Hilton Hotema talked about, and changing your diet so that you are producing a form of locomotion, digestion, and elimination, and liver function, and that your body is doing what it needs to do. So that between day and night, you sleep when it's nighttime, you don't have type 1 or type 2, the new thing, type 1 or type 2 insomnia, meaning that you either can't get to sleep when you initially lie down, or you lie down and you wake up in the middle of the night and you find that you just can't get back to sleep. And that's from busy mind, it's from food chemicals, it's from excitotoxins, it's from being magnesium deficient, it's any number of things, but none of those is a difficult thing to figure out. Okay, so it takes time. I'm 2 months in to healing my adrenals after a hell of a lot of stress. And I'm showing you, instead of saying, oh, I'll just stay off the YouTube video and I won't show myself. Yeah, I look tired. I am tired. My hair was a mess. Everything was a mess. But day by day by day, I'm regenerating. And that's what you do. So when you have gotten off balance, sick, ill, toxic, you have a diagnosis now, you have two roads you can take. If it's Parkinson's disease or it's a form of cancer, you take road 1 and you do the, if it's cancer, you do the recommendation, which may or may not be chemotherapy, radiation, tamoxifen, cutting off the breast, whatever it is, or you do the other one, which is I'm going to take the leap of faith that, and I've communicated with my doctor that I'm going to postpone my treatment if they feel like that's wise, and I feel like it's wise. You then decide to do a course of action where you go into a deep detoxification phase. And if you're thin already, you might get a little extra thin. It's not going to be the end of the world. But I've found over 35 years that people are morbidly afraid of becoming too thin. But the whole world is either dealing with central obesity or morbid obesity to such an extreme, it's frightening. But let them get a little too thin or a lot too thin, and they really panic that things are just really going haywire. And that's, again, because of the programming. It's because of showing starving people in Africa. It's because of showing, emaciated people. So yeah, you're going to lose weight. You're going to get thin if you need to get down to that phase where your body's just using up everything super efficiently. And now it is just smooth, and it is extremely efficient in terms of burning up what needs to get burned up in the body and clearing it out. You can always gain weight again. Okay. So that's kind of what I'm all about. And this was just an evening, of real talk. Like I said, you might be going back to work tomorrow. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, I got to go to the law firm tomorrow, and I've got to write a memorandum of points and authorities, and I don't want to do it. And I'm kind of, resenting that I was given that task for that particular case, or, some big trial was going to start the next morning, or something's going on. And I thought, oh gosh, I just kind of dreaded it. And that was around the time that I started really just kind of clenching my jaw, and I didn't realize how much stress I was under. So after I had my son, I made myself an agreement. I was like, this really isn't my path. The attorneys had offered to pay for me to go to law school. And they said, but you're really, really good at what you're doing, and you have a great work ethic, and you're just really strong at this. And I said, but I just don't see myself doing it forever. It's just not me. What I want to do is I want to really deep dive into health. And I've used a lot of my money while I worked in law, and I was paid well as a paralegal, and I paid thousands of dollars for herbal school, and massage school was a couple $1,000, and equipment, and Twin Lakes College of Healing for Ayurveda. And I went over to 5 branches and learned a lot by experiencing traditional Chinese medicine about once a week for several years, and worked through some things, and going to college. And I mean, all the way around, we used to heal each other, and, we do things very differently. So I'm thankful to have Western allopathic doctors for injury and trauma and burns, and to be able to go to and, have a conversation about what are their recommendations, and how do I feel, and what do I see. I'm about to select a new primary care physician, a guy who just finished his residency, who I feel is, quite a bit more open-minded, so that if there's an emergency, I have someone on record. That's a good idea to do that too. And I like how open-minded he is. And I told him I'm not going to be the one who goes and radiates her breasts to check them. I'm not going to have a hose up my rear end to check for a colonoscopy. It's not something I'm willing to do. And I get it. If you haven't been around someone who thinks that way, it might feel dangerous. It might feel really sketchy, but give it some time to sink in a little bit, that if something is invasive enough to present more of an element of risk than benefit, then you need to weigh that and make your own personal decision. And this is mine. Okay. This is mine. So that's what I choose to do. So anyway, I don't see who's here. I know somebody is here, and a few people have been here. There's 3 people here now. So why don't you guys have a wonderful evening? Get some good rest wherever you are in the world, because that's the beauty about YouTube, is you could be anywhere. And real talk is sustainability, safety, and truth. Would we have the pedo criminals if we hadn't hypersexualized, I guess I have another thought. If we hadn't hypersexualized people, if we hadn't changed their endocrine balance, their hormonal balance, I don't know why we got to call it endocrine, but anyway, would they be in the behaviors that they're in today? Craving sex with children, craving sex with animals. If that's you, think for a moment. Would you be behaving? Because I went through a period of time where my copper levels were so high, and I know it because I hair tested myself in 2017, and my copper levels were at a 4.3. And Dr. Watts educated me. You're going to feel a lot better. You want to aim for a 2.5 copper level. Then you're going to feel grounded. But I wasn't. So between my adrenals being so fatigued, so busted, in my words, solo parenting, moving across country, trying to bang out all the work at the law firm, trying to get, the other parent on board, trying to settle family disagreements, on and on and on. Wanting to homeschool and being felt like I was, put in a corner. A lot of things hit me personally, and I had a mouthful of amalgam fillings. It was just driving my system down because of all of that mercury, all of that copper, all of that silver constantly leaching out of my teeth into my bloodstream and into my child. My adrenals crashed. I was angry. I was yelling. I was anxious. I had a panic attack or 2 or 3. I don't remember anymore now. I had gynecological problems. And I thought, what is going on? This is not me, right? I mean, it was definitely mental health. I didn't have a diagnosis of mental health, but I could have or should have. And I don't know. But I love my child enough to say, whoa, what's going on that I had to scream and get so angry? It's not me. I'm normally the calmest person ever. But this is what these heavy elements, these toxic elements, heavy metals, what toxicity, liver backed up, gallbladder backed up, adrenals slowed and fatigued, thyroid slowed down, that's what that will do to you. You'll become, and you'll think, and you'll feel, and you'll express yourself in ways that you wouldn't have otherwise done. I did. And I see it all the time, almost every day. We hypersexualized and changed the hormonal or endocrine system of people through feeding them dead animals that had been given hormones to make them grow faster, with elements in their food so they wouldn't get sick in foul, dirty, disgusting conditions in factory farms, tightened up in a cage, right? Their young pulled away from them, being raped, being treated the way that they were, and all those stress hormones, the same thing that are giving our people the real flat effect, calloused, disconnected, losing empathy, to the point that today we say, oh, she's an empath. I go, what are you talking about? She's an empath. We're all empathic, but we don't have it when we get brain lateralized, when we get so far over to the left that we only think analytically. We don't connect with people really anymore. We don't feel and emote. That's what the copper gives you. So balancing that copper, checking in on that hair tissue test to see, what is your copper level? Well, if it's about a 2.5, so when I tested my family member, he was at a 0.8. And the zinc was up quite a bit higher than the copper. They form a ratio. So what happens there is the person starts to become like the Tin Man. They're very left brain, analytical. They're not thinking. They're not going to cry as much. They don't get emotional. They get, hardened, flat. That's not a good way for us to think about sustainability and trust and manners and love and empathy and connection and compassion, is to have everyone flat. Okay. So these are things that we need to think about. And it's why what you put in your mouth, what you eat, what your daily habits are, they matter. Okay. So I've gone on for a long time. You can see Pablo's getting, he's getting tired. He's a cuddle bug. And just do your best. If you're going to work tomorrow, you know, make it the best day for you by getting up just a little early. You know, bring some food or drink with you, bring some water with you in a reusable bottle. And, you know, think about some of the things that I've said here. Share them with other people. Just say, you know, I think our sustainability, our having food forest, our thinking about the soil and getting minerals in it, because the food products in the grocery stores are the new drugs. They're the highest level drugs on the planet. Cheese Nips and Nabisco and McDonald's and all those things in glittery wrappers and aluminum cans and energy drinks. That's why my clients, when they hair test, they've got super, super elevated phosphorus, or, you know, their sodium levels are just off the charts. And Dr. Watts showed me how when the sodium and the potassium, sodium and potassium are off, it can go into addictive personality traits. So everyone have a good night. I'm going for real. All right.